What is up, everyone? Welcome to Chapter 4 on the blank slate theory. How was the day one theory? How was your experimentation? How did that go? What did you realize? What did you discover? What shifted? How did that help you lessen the load of time that you were carrying? So now let's move on to the second theory, and that is the blank slate theory. So first off, let's take another couple seconds so that we can really connect with our spirit, with our breath. Really slow down and immerse ourselves in this moment. See how much time we're unconsciously carrying as we find that centeredness, that groundedness, so that we can really dive in to the next theory here. So, the blank slate theory poses the hypothesis that the mind's natural state is empty. And this is going to be another dissonance. This is going to be another counter belief, a counter idea to what we are accustomed to with the relationship with our mind and the constant need to fill it. And we grow accustomed to thinking that our natural state is when we feel full. And so this is going to be a little bit of a culture shift to what we have been accustomed to. So if you really put the energy into proving the day one theory, you're really starting to see a shift of identification from that old identity structure, the old paradigm of feeling this identity structure around a person, to shifting into something else, shifting into this presence. So as we go into the blank slate theory, we can take it a step further and really start to unmix the frequencies that have been programmed to be very mixed. Again, based off of that survival of the fittest, identity-based, conditioned structure, paradigm, operating system that has been programmed into us for generations. So, the blank slate theory is going to the next dimension, which is 4D. And this is really getting to the time element, but also the space. So with the day one theory, we were really saying how much time is carried in the body, with the hypothesis that the body is not actually in time. And so we experimented with that theory to really question, inquire, analyze how much time do we believe that the body is actually in, versus the theory which is posing that the body is not in any time at all. And so now we take it a step further and we see that 4D, let me move over so I'm in the camera, 4D is actually the mind, and that 4D is how the mind processes time, and that the emptiness is actually space. So our mind is the collection of time that are coming from our thoughts. So when we really scalpel this, when we go deeper and deeper, again, towards that quantum micro precision, what we're starting to see here is that 3D is our body, 4D is our mind. And so there is this invisible kind of transition that happens here. But when we are unconscious and running from that automatic pilot, this whole thing becomes one big mixed party of frequencies, and as we know it, the body-mind. Okay? So with the blank slate theory, we're going to start to unmix this thing. Unmix this chaos in a way, and get to the clarity that the clarity of this hypothesis. So how can we start to do that? How can we start to really see what is going on here from the idea of proving this hypothesis as true, and not battling our own emptiness, but falling in love with it and seeing the truth in it, seeing truth from illusion more clearly, so that you can be at peace and tranquil and calm by waking up to some of the computer activity here. So the way that I want to illustrate this is, well, let's move this up. What I want to do is show you that how you can start to discern this. We have our body. This is us in 3D, okay? And when we are unconscious on autopilot, our mind is just running, and we are a victim to it. Victim to thoughts. And again, we talked about thoughts being the film strip that is compartmentalizing, that's dividing our experience into moments. And that when we actually look at this moment, we can see here, let me start there, we can see that now the moment and within that moment, you could be having thoughts. And the way that you can understand this from the traditional kind of language is this is the ego. It's the thing that makes you feel separate from the moment and individual from the rest of creation, the rest of existence, but gives you that sense of I'm an individual, I'm unique, and all of that stuff. And so, where is the mind? Let's start with that question. Where is the mind? Because the mind is not in 3D. The mind is, well, we put it up here, but it comes from our brain, comes from consciousness, and it comes from this programming of personhood. The state of personhood. This is identity. And this is the structures that we're starting to really see the illusion of and dismantle its control over our experience with the day one theory, and to take it a step further. So what I posit here is that when we dive in, so imagine that we have our three-dimensional, I'm going to draw a really bad brain here. Imagine that that's our three-dimensional brain in 3D, and what's happening inside of it is boop, 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 all of these neurological light to light communication. All the neurons. Okay? And there's billions, trillions firing at any given moment, depending on what's happening, fear, emotions, all of that. Right? What we're doing, again, this is the synthesis and simplification of a lot of complexity to arrive at a distillation of how best to utilize this and apply this for your own evolution. What we're doing is we're going to take all of that light, we're going to unitize all of that light. All that light is all information, all different chaos, everything. What we're going to do is say light is the same. All light is the same. So we're going to take the mess of all of that confusion, and we're going to say that singularize light as all the same, and we're going to dive into one light beam. So imagine that we're watching one light beam go from point A to point B, and we're going to choose that, and we're going to blow that up. Blow that up in a extrapolation sense. We're going to take a microscope, going to go in it, and we're going to look inside of it. And so from there, we go into the brain and into a light beam, and now we've entered the fourth dimension, where we're not physical, but metaphysical. The first on-ramp to metaphysical. And that line right here is the line between reality and make believe, or you can call it simulation. Because what the mind is doing is using the past and the future to protect your survival. And that's survival of the fittest. That's how it was designed. That's the self-conscious paradigm. Self-conscious, protecting the person, protecting the identity at all costs based on fear. And so when we cross this line, this invisible reality barrier, which is paramount to this work to understand, we're going from real to unreal. And we can even put that there. Real to unreal. Because you can see your mind, you can interact with your mind, but I cannot. Likewise with my mind. That is such an important distinction to make, that you cannot actually touch the mind with the five senses of the physical. Like, I can't see your mind, I can't smell your mind, but what I smell in reality, you can share. So once we do that, now we can start to see things a lot clearer as we approach this blank slate theory to get to the deepest truth about what the mind is and how to transform, state change, frequency hop, master our emotion, mental states, and get out of the unconscious, automatic patterning, conditioning, stressors, all of the stuff that we don't prefer, the chaos of thoughts. Like if you can't meditate, all the thoughts overwhelm, all of that stuff is because we don't have an accurate grasp on what the mind actually is and what the natural state of it actually is. Because it's just automatic, going as fast as whatever. But we slow down, we see what it actually is. Now we can start to really master what our soul is here to master and be in that zone. So what we've done is we're going into light We're going into light to see that the mind, first off, is a thought, but it's also our own container of possibilities and space. So once we see this, now we can understand that all of this stuff right here that we define is actually creating, again, body, mind, is creating a separate, secondary, redundant person that we think we are. In our mind, this is the personhood. This is the identity, that the illusion that we think we are. The masks that we feel that we have to wear. This is really important. So once we can see this, and once we start to question what this cage is, the self-conscious cage, and hit the walls of it, we can start to break through these barriers, these walls that were put up by fear. It's when you start to figure out this illusion, when you start to figure it out, it's going to start to be like, no, that's unsafe. You can't go there. You can't go there. And so when we have this fear of emptiness, this fear of emptiness, it's because the mind is designed to keep you safe by being distracted, by having the addictions, by constantly keeping yourself busy, because you're just avoiding the pain or the loneliness of emptiness, because it's been so conditioned that it's wrong. It's wrong, it's bad, it needs to be avoided at all costs. So when we see this, that the mind is actually in its natural state the projector of thoughts. And that through the day one theory of seeing that a thought is only the collection of past, present, and future, right? Because what is regret? It's thinking about the past. What is anxiety? Thinking about the future. So or stress, you're thinking about the future. You're thinking about all the things that you have to get done. You're being guided, or not guided, you're being forced to have a perception of the reality that you're creating, that things are hard, that there's so much to do and so little time to do it, that there's no way for you to have more space in your schedule, because all of the responsibilities based off of this is telling you, is informing you that is the only way that you can live. But once we second guess this whole structure and we get off of this linear thinking that time is you, that you are the past and you are the future at the same time, in a personal sense, then you could really start to shift and get closer and closer to where the thoughts are birthing out of. And see, again, the space between thoughts. And really start to empower this know-how where you are actually looking for the space instead of looking for the thoughts. And then you'll have this new sense of freedom and liberation from the shackles that are keeping you in this old paradigm worldview, this old paradigm reality-based, self-conscious perspective that makes you separate from your reality. And then you see that your lower self, negative and negative, that is where you see that you're operating in this lower field state, lower domain, lower frequencies, lower self, animalistic, unconscious levels, and you think that you are this. You think that you are your mind, or you think you are the body, because that's what the mind is telling you. But once you question that, once you get to the state that the mind is not you and that you are applying this hypothesis, trying to prove the hypothesis that the natural state is actually the space between the thoughts, the emptiness, and that the emptiness is no longer just negative, but maybe you can start to see the positive or neither, the neutrality of it, that you see, like, think about relativity, that this becomes the mind created self, but in a relativity sense, now you can really use your imagination to adjust the relativity here. Because when your mind self is like this big, and the moment is this big, mind self, moment, you see how small you are compared to the moment? Well, now you're not this. You're the whole thing, and we'll get into that tomorrow with the quantum self theory as the everything. But this application of the blank slate theory is to get you to that clarity of emptiness, to where at a quantum level you can zero yourself out and have the moment be the infinite grand thing, but you know yourself as nothing, the nothingness, the emptiness. That's where the leverage comes from. That's where the trust comes from. That's where surrender comes from. That's where enlightenment comes from. A whole host of things will start to connect, insights, realizations, breakthroughs about your pain, your struggles, your stresses, your traumas, all of these things will, it's not, none of it is mine. None of it is me. I am the emptiness between the thoughts. So thus, I can feel that peace of mind to be nothing, allow the moment to be it, and really get a sense of being free from this reality, the matrix, unplugging, the confinement, the constriction, that feeling like the person is. And now you're getting to the state of presence. Now, a state of presence. Stillness. Peace. You feel that? Because you have connected the illusion of the mind and the fullness and the seeking for fullness with the truth of its natural state. And again, I'm theorizing this for you so you can go out and test it. That the actual state of your mind is empty. That's the natural state. That is your natural state. So play with this. Put down your comments, any questions, curiosities, insights, and realizations. And really go look with your eyes and your eye. Your human eyes to prove this to yourself, that you really can't touch the mind, and it can't touch you. As the observer, as the I am, the existence, the awareness of it all. And really embrace being the 0 point. The 0 point of all creation. Have fun.